Hello, I'm here with Wiggins, and obviously we're going to do the competitive interview. Do you want to just introduce yourself, what your team is, what you main?
Sure. So I suppose Wiggin or Jordan, depending on who's talking to me. And I captain slash, I suppose I was the founder of Salt-Free Gaming, which is basically my latest pursuit into the competitive esports world. We played Counter-Strike and TF2, and we're thinking about moving into Dota as well. But personally, I'm currently playing Roma for our current team, which is a nice change in many ways. It's the first time I've ever mained Roma. I've played it a few times in the past, but other than Pocket now, well, there's no classes other than Pocket I haven't mained in sixes. So I'm trying to work my way around the groups and get a handle on everything. But yeah, I suppose that's me. In my real world life, I'm a paramedic from South Australia, so that's what I spend my days doing, and then my nights I come and play video games.
Well, personally, I've always watched those Australian crash TV shows, and all the Australian police so nice compared to the British police.
Yeah, it's just, we would probably hold a different view on that. But
Australians are basically like the opposite worlds version of the Canadians. They're just so nice.
We're a weird group.
Obviously, so you're the leader of the team, are you?
Yeah, this current team, yes.
Okay.
This will be our first season. We play on, Oz Fortress is like the Australian competitive scene. And literally about half an hour ago, the placements for teams and divisions came out. So we're getting psyched up for that, because this will be, in my current team, this will be our first season playing together. Most of us have played together previously in teams, but as the name suggests, Salt-Free Gaming, we're all, I suppose, relatively experienced players, not necessarily the best players, but we've all gone through sort of a very competitive, trying to be high-level players, and now we just have all grown up and just want to enjoy the game for fun and play at whatever level we're at, kind of thing. So, yeah.
Okay. Getting back onto the questions again, we kind of went off there.
Yeah.
Other mains, what other classes do you like to play besides Roma? What would you say is your other class that
Demo is historically probably my favourite class. I've played 2 or 3 seasons now in Oz Fortress on Demo as a main, and before that I played a couple as Scout. I learnt the game as a Scout, and then I kind of played Demo as a Scout and wasn't particularly good at it, and now I'm kind of trying to see if I can roam with the mentality of a Scout, and it's still not working particularly well, but I think Demo, as far as the game goes, is probably my favourite class overall.
What qualities do you think are most needed to play Roma?
I think Roma's a mechanically focused class in many ways, because you're doing a lot of jumping and pogoing and strafing and etc, and I think that's a big element, is physically being capable with your movement. But on top of that, I think Roma is also fascinating because even though your damage isn't necessarily very high or your KD isn't necessarily high, you have to be quite switched on as far as your game sense and mental capacity goes, knowing when it's appropriate to die and not to die, what you need to achieve with your life and that kind of thing. So I think it's a nice mix of mental and physical ability in Roma that you don't necessarily see in every class. But I think obviously there's aspects in every class, but I think Roma is a very nice balance between the two of challenging you as physically and mechanically as a player, and also challenging you on a mental level to use your brain to win the game rather than just pointing and clicking.
So I guess that covers also the tips, I would say, for play. That you did give some tips there. I think that would probably cover the tips. I don't think we really asked that question. Why did you start playing TF2? Cast your mind back. Diddle. Flashback.
I started playing TF2, I think my first game was early 2009. So a long time ago, and we have a, I don't know if it's an international magazine or just an Australian magazine called PC Power Play, and I remember they did an article on the very first basically beta of TF2, and it just kind of caught my eye as what looked like a challenging game, rather than just sort of a reflex-based shooter, which is what I've been playing previously. My main background's in Counter-Strike. Not saying Counter-Strike doesn't obviously have a high skill ceiling, but I just thought it was an interesting idea for a game. And at that stage, my laptop that I was using couldn't actually run it, so it wasn't until 2009 that I realised my other computer might be able to. So I launched it when a mate bought the orange box for me as a gift when it was on sale, and I suppose the rest is history, really. You know, a few thousand hours later, and what are we in, 6 or 7 seasons of competitive and multiple teams, and here we are still playing and enjoying it just as much as I did back in 2009, really.
Alright, that moves us on to our next question, history of teams. Like, how many teams have you been in? Can you remember the names of some of them?
I can. So, long story short, I used to work for a company called Adamant Esports, which was not a big Australian esports organisation, but they were kind of pushing the boundaries of some of the big teams, and I basically jumped on board as their sort of media and social networking manager, and also helped run a couple of teams, including what would become the first Adamant Team Fortress 2 team. And due to a few complications, we actually left that organisation, and afterward I left as well, and we formed a team called Furious with a P and a H, which was years ago now, and we had quite a bit of success and played well. And then eventually after that, when that all fell through because of uni, I basically started playing more socially for a team called Unicycle, which was based simply on the fact that all of our members were basically full-time students studying what I'd consider relatively challenging courses, and we all just wanted to enjoy the game. So I played quite a few seasons with them, and ended up playing until the end of last season with them, and then formed Salt Free Gaming, Counter-Strike and TF2 with the same intent, but basically these teams, being the selfish person that I am, I basically handpicked my favourite, as well, some of my favourite people that I've played with in the past to form this team, just based on personality rather than our skill level. And mixed in amongst that, I've played, I don't know, a bit of UGC as a backup in Highlander, which is definitely not my favourite format of the game, and I've played some fours for a team called, I don't know, Crabs or something. So I've been around the block a few times, but yeah, I suppose that's about it as far as my history goes.
Okay, I think that that definitely covers how did you get into competitive, which definitely covers that. I guess just elaborate a little bit more for this one. Why did you get into competitive? That's just elaborate.
I think I started watching games on YouTube and Twitch being casted. A team called Pandemic was really big at that stage, and I was quite frankly inspired by their abilities. And at that stage, I was also, you know, I'd been playing the game for a long time, and I got to the point that pubs were not as challenging as they used to be, trying to sound a bit diplomatic, but it's the truth. And basically I started researching competitive TF2 and came across Oz Fortress, and through Oz Fortress I came across a group of, pugs as they used to be, I suppose. And then through pugging I realised that there was a whole other skill level that I was kind of at the bottom of. And I'm up for a challenge. I've had relatively good success in the past with sports, and I thought, well, why not give esports a go and see where it takes me.
Okie dokie. Why did you decide to make your own sort of team? Why did you decide to do that instead of, just joining another team?
Originally it was because I thought I knew what I was doing as far as a player goes. I was maining med at that stage, and I felt like my ability to call and lead were pretty good. And it didn't take long, I suppose, for me to realise that wasn't necessarily the case, but by then I'd already made a team. So we had a team then, and I kind of moved back to just a managing position, playing scout, and let a much more experienced player take over, I suppose, captaining the team and in-game leading or calling. And now I suppose the most recent version of Salt Free Gaming was literally just because my timetable was pretty rubbish. I'm just applying for a new job with the South Australian Ambulance Service, and they work 4 days on, 4 days off, with 2 days and 2 nights. That means that consistency as far as rosters and scrims and matches goes isn't really there anymore. And I like the idea of having a team that was all people that used to play seriously and now are happy to just play once or twice a week. We've been placed in intermediate, which is our middle division, I suppose. It's the first time we've had it. We used to run on a division system in Australia, with usually 5 or 6 divisions each season, whereas now they've swapped to a Swiss system with Premier, Intermediate and Open. So we've been seated in Intermediate this season, so it'll be a new experience playing with that format, I suppose.
What qualities do you think are needed for leaders to lead a team?
Oh, cheese and crackers. That's also, a broad question.
While you're waffling on that, add in some tips if you would.
Sure. I think leading is something that in many ways it sort of comes naturally to people that are good leaders, and good followers following well comes naturally. But I mean, serve is to lead. You know, that was my school's motto back in the day. So I think leaders have to have great communication. They have to be willing to be the first one to put a foot forwards to do something that not necessarily everyone wants to do, and they also have to be able to listen. And I think it's a symbiotic relationship in many ways, isn't it, between a leader and a follower, or a captain and a team member, because you're all working towards the same thing. And when you're running sort of a dictatorship rather than a democracy, you're not going to get anywhere as a team, really. So I think really the main thing is communication and being able to listen well and explore ideas and concepts effectively within a group. And I suppose that's not necessarily things that you can give tips on easily. But if I was saying to someone, you want to be a leader, how do you lead a team? How do you form a team, etc., etc.? The big thing for me is talking to people, building networks, and being social in that atmosphere. Lots of competitive scenes. TF2, CSGO, Dota, whatever it is you're playing, there's always going to be players that are, toxic. But I think you just have to be willing to negotiate those obstacles and, create relationships with people. And I think through that, you eventually end up with a team of people that want to be together. You see a lot of teams these days that form for one season and they might not even make the season, or they might make a season and a bit and then they disband and all separate. Whereas a lot of the teams I've been in have stayed together for 2, 3, 4 seasons, and I think that's really because we all enjoy the game together and have similar ideas about what we want to achieve. So yeah, I'd say that's my advice.
Okay, so moving on. What do you think of the new rank system? Obviously, you got a beta pass, haven't you? So
yes, correct.
What do you think of it so far? What do you think it's going to mean for TF2?
I think it's great. A lot of people would argue that TF2's dying or TF2's dead, but I think the player base is still there. It's just, at least in Australia, the level of skilled players isn't quite as high as it used to be. But I think this is going to bring a big influx of new teams. This season, Oz Fortress has one of its highest number of teams signed up in the last few years. And I think that's heavily to do with, we have a guy called Brodogs, or Rowan, who's a good friend of mine. He's the media coordinator for Oz Fortress. He's been doing the job for, I'd say, close to a year now. And I think personally, I might be a bit biased, his influence on the scene and willingness to sort of spread an open arm to people to come and play and be involved is a lot to do with that. And I think things like ranked and matchmaking will only bring more people to the scene. Because again, you play ranked games, and most of the time you're playing against people that haven't really had an experience within the competitive scene. They might have good mechanics or a rough idea what's going on, but their game sense just isn't quite there. They don't understand pushing and holding and Ubers and timing, and that is their downfall. Whereas I think hopefully it'll breach the gap that currently exists between pubs and competitive in many ways by exposing those communities to each other in a positive sort of upbeat environment. And I think that's what I've seen so far. So far, it's been a really good, enjoyable version of the game. There's obviously things that need to be ironed out and a few flaws and lots of bugs and that kind of stuff. But I mean, you know, the stress tests and the beta haven't been going for that long. So, you know, we'll wait and see. I think there's lots of potential if the community gets behind it.
What do you think? Do you think there is ever going to be a Team Fortress 3?
I think there's going to be a Team Fortress 3. Well, based on Valve's history, I mean, you've got what? Half-Life 1, Half-Life 2, the episodes, Left 4 Dead 1, Left 4 Dead 2, Team Fortress Classic, Fortress Forever, TF2. They're not very good at counting to 3, which I know is a bit of a running joke, but I think especially for a game like TF2 where you're up at the... I mean, how many updates have they had now? Like in the 600 plus 700, I know I've lost count. They're kind of pushing this game as... I think really we've been in Team Fortress 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever for a long time now. There's been so many different metas, I suppose, so many different views on how to play the game, that it almost is completely different to when it first came out back in 2007. So no, I don't think so. I think there'll be a Left 4 Dead 3. I think there'll be a Half-Life 3 eventually, but I don't know about TF2. I think TF2 might just be updated to the point that eventually people just start calling it TF3. We'll wait and see.
What do you think's the most overpowered weapon in Team Fortress 2? All of them. No. In all honesty, I would argue in many ways the scattergun and the rocket launcher. And actually, you know what, stuff? Let's go with stickies. Demo stickies are the most broken thing in the game. Like, the damage they can do, and that you can use them as a trap, and that there's, you know, almost no fall off. And, you know, they're just insane. For what was originally designed as a defensive class to now be one of the continual highest damage dealers, continual highest fraggers, like, you've just got an insanely built class in the demo. I think there's lots of new unlocks that are a little bit broken, like the soda popper on Scout I just find frustrating. The flog on Pyro is still the bane of my existence. The back burner. You know, there's lots of weapons that I find very frustrating to play against, simply because I think they remove skill in a way and rely on luck, or, well, more on luck. You know, the soda popper, you know, it's a random time charge up thing and then you get crits, which is, like, great if you can use it, and all power to people who do, but, you know, I prefer weapons that are consistent, and that's why I think I'd say the demo in general is just the most overpowered class, with the most overpowered weapons to go with it. I will admit, I probably agree with you though. I think they should have just given the demo like the Scottish Resistance and not given the normal sticky launcher, because that is just, as a pyro, you can't even get close.
As any class, you can't get close. Like in a 1v1, there's almost nothing in the game that'll be the demo if you've got a good demo playing. Which, that being said, Demo, in my opinion, is the second hardest class in the game. I think Medic's the hardest, and Demo is the second hardest to play well.
I would say that's very personalisation hardest classes, because when I started doing lobbies on TF2 Center, I was doing Medic, because Medic was the only one I could play. It was just because you just sit at the back healing people and occasionally launch Crusader crossbows in. I think it's very personal based, I think, hardest classes. But that's an interesting thing, so I was actually going to do a video at some point talking about skill level, but that's something for me. We're already going way over time at the moment. Let's just end with our last question. What do you want most in TF2? What do you want them to add in?
What do I want them to add? I want them to push the matchmaking scene to the same level we see in Dota and CSGO. I think that these days, well, I don't know, in my social circles, more people play matchmaking in Counter-Strike than pubs. And in Dota, it's not necessarily the same, but I think there's, within the community, MMR and ranked games and stuff are like such a popular discussion point. I would love TF2 to become similar to that in the sense that people that play the game also play matchmaking and are challenged to play with people that are at similar or higher skill levels. And I think there's potential there for that to really open up the community to a larger number of people, and then with that bring in viewership from other scenes or whatever, and maybe even some bigger, not necessarily prize pools. I'm not saying let's give more money out or whatever, but I mean it would be nice. Don't get me wrong, but I'd love to see teams more regularly being able to play against similar level teams that are international. There's the I series, Insomnia, whatever it is, where there's been some great games between Australia and America and Europe, but it doesn't happen very often. I'd love to. My dream would be to see matchmaking lead to more support of the scene that leads to more coverage of international competitions.
Yeah, everyone loves money.
Yeah, the more money the better, but I'd rather that money be used towards supporting the competition than necessarily going directly to the players. Because I don't know if we'll ever be in the situation where we have 200 grand, $1 million, 18 million bucks.
Well, I think there's personally not enough advertising in TF2. I'm surprised that Valve actually hold out for as long as they do, because there's actually, as much as people are saying, oh, TF2 is dying, it's actually a ridiculously popular game. It's huge. And it's free.
It's huge. And there was a stat released a while ago. I can't remember who it was. His estimation, which I don't know whether it was based in fact or fiction, but it was quite popular, was that the average player buys one item a week off the market. Now, I can't remember the last time I bought an item in game. I buy things on the market with trading and that kind of thing quite regularly. Yeah. But you do the math on how much money Valve is making through TF2 and Dota.
I never want to think about how much money Valve makes.
Yeah, exactly. So they have the money to support the scene, and I hope that maybe if people get involved with matchmaking, Valve will realise that there is a following of this game still, and hopefully that'll bring it back up to the level that it once was.
Anyway, I think that roundabout wraps us up here. Obviously, I think that they hopefully my thing's not whistling as bad. I've been turning it off while you're talking, so I just turn my mic on when I'm talking, because hopefully that'll cancel out the whistle. But yeah, I think obviously there was a bit of lag occasionally in there, but I think that's only because you're the other side of the world to me.
Yes, indeed.
But yeah, obviously, thank you very much for doing this. Obviously, Wiggin here has a channel of his own, so I'll leave that at the end of this video. Yeah, I really hope you've checked out. This has definitely been the longest interview.
I'm sorry,
so I think we're going to have to do a few rounds. We'll probably fit a few rounds in here. But yeah, thank you very much. I think everyone should go subscribe to this guy. And definitely go check out Oz, the competitive Australian scene.
Woo, Australia.
There you go, a bit of free advertising there for you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No worries. And I'll see you guys next time.
Hello? Oh,
okay, there you go.
Okay, it's working.
Alright then. Okay, so obviously, you just introduce yourself, nice and simple now. So your name, your team, and what do you main?
Hello, my name is Haiku. I am a medic main for Mori Kien, which is a UGC plat, TF2 high team.
Is there any other classes you like to play on the side? What's your favourite classes?
On the sides, I like to play Soldier 6s, and I also play a bit of Heavy, work for some friends.
What qualities do you think are most needed to play as medic?
As medic, you definitely need a lot of patience, and you need to be really calm. Like, if you're not patient or calm, you're going to have a really